this is the 26th. So anyway, let's see if there's questions or discussion that people have.
I have a question because I haven't been able to find the answer. Sometimes when we blog about Iraq, people, commenters always say, well, before Saddam Hussein, everybody was fighting with everybody. There was sectarian violence. And I know that's not really true.
Right.
So, but how do you, what are good sources for going back and saying that it was a secular sport? And it wasn't always.
Right. The Ba'athists were a socialist party. It's the Arab Ba'ath Socialist Party, and so the platform of the Ba'ath Party doesn't. I don't know that it necessarily rules out religious involvement. Well, first of all, if you look at the Ba'ath Party, the father of the Ba'ath Party was Michel Aflaq, who was a Syrian Christian, Greek Orthodox Christian. And the founder of the one who brought the Ba'ath Party to Iraq, who first brought it to Iraq, and again, I've done the research for my book, I wouldn't know any other way, but it was a Shia, his religion was Islam, and his sect was Shia, but he was first a nationalist. And so with the Arab Ba'ath Socialist Party, it was an idea of Arab nationalism for national unity, anti-colonialism and anti-Zionism, and socialism. This was the founding basis. Now Saddam Hussein took it in his own direction and really perverted what those founding principles were. It's pretty clear that because we know Saddam Hussein, we accurately know him as a brutal dictator, you couldn't step out of line or you would be jailed and or tortured and or disappeared and or killed. There was no room for that, and that is actually why the Shia, why you'll hear people say, well, the Shia were persecuted under Saddam Hussein. It wasn't because of a religious issue. The issue was protecting his secular rule. And it was an issue because these more conservative Shia religious parties wanted to bring theocracy to Iraq the same way it was in Iran. And so that's why he put people into exile. That's why at Ashura, when the Shia, they want to march to the holy places and they hit themselves, he put a stop on all of that because he didn't want that strong religious influence coming in and threatening his secular government. Now I'll say again, he was an equal opportunity persecutor. He went after the Shia. He persecuted the Kurds if they were not going to, if they were going to interfere with Iraq's unity, especially with the question of Kirkuk, which has a lot of oil. If you were Sunni, I mean, it just didn't matter. If somebody whispered the word that he criticized Saddam Hussein, you're going to have the intelligence service, the mukhabarat, you're going to have them at your door. So that's how everything was kept in line. So you can use the reputation of Saddam Hussein's brutality, which is a reputation that he earned, that was why he was brutal, and that's how he stayed in power for so long. Well, that added our help. Usually, a minority group like that is not going to stay in power without significant help, and we were there to back them up all the way.
Other questions or discussion?
I know you didn't want to deal with the superpower issue so much, but I'm not really familiar with the Baghdad conference.
Okay.
But when you mention that, you know, the thing tripped about, can you connect the dots between the Baghdad conference, our overthrowing the democracy in Iran, the British involved in Iraq, this CIA in Iran, and basically we're working for the oil companies.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's the power behind the thrones in all of these cases are oil. you know, you just gotta pick up the carpet to look at the dust, you know.
Absolutely.
Is that, I mean, would you agree with me on that?
Oh, there's absolutely that, that overlying influence, and I don't mean to dismiss it by calling it just influence, because we're absolutely causing major changes in the region. That's very accurate, and actually.
Mercenaries for hire.
Say it again.
Mercenaries for hire.
That's absolutely, absolutely. And the bottom line is cash flow and the protection of multinational corporations. I'm going to shamelessly plug the book that I'm working on, which I've been working on for 6 years now, which really, I hope you like it, because it's really, I'm not a historical scholar, and that's the understatement of the evening. But what I do is I take the stories of both sides of my family and really tell the family story and insert history into that. So I hope it's interesting, because that's the only way I would follow it. That's the only way I would write it, because this has been, God bless all the historians, I don't ever want to write another book. That being said, I talk about in 1953, I think it was Operation Ajax. It was the CIA-led overthrow of Mohammad Mossadegh, who was the democratically elected leader, but he was communist in Iran. And his platform, I'm sorry, we're socialist. Okay. It's been a while since I wrote this chapter, so thank you for that. But what his platform for election was to nationalize Iran's oil. And of course, Iran was British Petroleum was there. And so we overthrew him, and that's when we installed the Shah of Iran. So the relationship, see, this is why it's so complicated.
One feared dictator for them.
Yeah, and actually with U.S. encouragement, the Shah, during the 1970s, armed the Kurds to rise up against Saddam Hussein. And there were, at this time, the Israelis were involved as well, also supporting Kurdish uprisings. And you see now the Israelis are involved in, if you saw the report within the last couple of weeks, that now the Kurdish government is selling the oil from the north, and it showed up at a port in Israel. So this is, again, that's the root of the Western interest there. I guess you're absolutely correct. The only thing that I want to bring to light is that at the same time that everything is so manipulated by these very, very powerful corporations and systems, the people on the ground are seeking they have their own agendas. So it's a funny way to look at it, but the CIA, the American government, through the CIA, helped bring Saddam Hussein to power. And in 1959, there was an attempt on the Iraqi leader's life, and there were 10 men involved in the operation, 10 rebels, and one of them was Saddam Hussein. He got shot in the leg, but made it to Damascus through to Crete. Now, once again, there's a lot of open desert. So it would be really amazing if he had walked from Baghdad to Tikrit and then over into Syria without any assistance. But the sources I have are that this was CIA involvement, as well as other secret police, and it gets really, my head starts to spin. But but at the same time that the American government was using him, he was using them. He got to the highest position in Iraq. And then he renationalized the oil. And I believe that 2003 was the 30-year payback and not only that, because Iraq the economy was skyrocketing in the 1970s. So instead of Iraq being an emblem of independence and success, they were tanked, and they are an emblem of extreme poverty and suffering. This I believe. Obviously, completely biased, and seeing, just watching it from over here with family there. But you're all these things are factoring in. So while we're manipulating, those people have their own agendas as well.
I'm going to draw a couple of vignettes. it's a very pessimistic view. One vignette is of a rather randomly selected Palestinian teenager being badly mauled by a gang, and gasoline poured into him, and he was burned to death. The other vignette is a picture of 100 United States senators supporting the Israeli war on Gaza. The horrible as this Emmett Till lynching, remember Emmett Till?
Yeah.
This Palestinian kid was Emmett Till. Horrible as that was, there's something more horrible. Very little upset about it within Israel, or knowledge about it within the United States. And that this could happen with 100 votes in the Senate. My bottom line on it is that Israel and the U.S. have totally, well, Israel was supposed to be a light unto the nations. And I'm sure that the United States was supposed to be a light unto the nations. And I think both have, I mean, democracy in this country has become a joke. And a very bad joke. And democracy in Israel has been replaced by a level of racism. Kill the Arabs, kill Arabs, kill the Arabs. I thought a week ago, I made some comments about two kinds of Nazis. The Nazis that murdered my grandmother, my aunt, and almost murdered my grandmother, and would have murdered me and murdered my schoolmates. But the even worse Nazism, spelled N-O-T-S-E-E, of not seeing what's going on and not acknowledging what's going on. And I think we are in a total crisis of self-delusion about Israel, which has absolutely delegitimized itself. Absolutely. Absolutely delegitimized itself. It's a racist, apartheid, militaristic hellhole imposing its will for whatever that will is on the last time this was happening, it wasn't in Germany, it was at the Battle of Wounded Knee. So, in that sense, our history is sort of clouded. But at this particular point, it's the not seeing, assisted by corporate media. I don't know what they're trying to sell. I mean, they're no longer selling newspapers this way. But, you know, I don't see a way out except shouting from the rooftops, look what's going on.
Let's shout
See.
from rooftops. Let's shout from rooftops.
Right, I know, but I needed to vent this before I could see what we might be able to do.
Now we have a response or
All I would say is that, as I recall, Operation Cast Lead was quite a wake-up. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people have to die for attention to come to what has been slowly happening over decades. Operation Cast Lead was a wake-up call for a lot of people. This is actually Operation Pillar of Cloud, because it only lasted 8 days, I think had less of an impact in 2012. But this is again drawing a lot of attention now. Every death, no matter the ethnicity, every death here is a result of the illegal Israeli occupation. So there's a final tally. There will be a final tally, and that number is on the Israeli government and this continued occupation. I think this is, and I don't mean to sound opportunistic, but this is another opportunity to raise awareness and push boycott, divestment, sanctions. I heard, and I don't know if anybody can confirm it, that there was at least talk, there was quite a lot of voicing of frustration and anguish, as you just did, in the House of Commons in the UK. And I heard word of, oh, if you just Google it, there's a video from the House of course, it wasn't the House of Lords, it was the House of Commons, but I've never seen, it's a 12-minute video, and I've never seen anything like that. Right. One of the people who spoke up was Gerald Kaufman, who also spoke up during Operation Cast Lead. He's an MP, and he talks about, he compares he said, my family did not escape the Nazis, my grandmother did not escape the Nazis so that Israel could kill Palestinian grandmothers in Gaza. So he's one of the speakers there, and there was talk about economic sanctions against Israel. That's what should happen. But absolutely, what you're doing, and you don't have to literally scream from the rooftops, but this is when everything that you and I do in the so-called periods of calm, this is when you've been working hard and hard and hard and harder and harder to bring this to light before another massacre takes place. And this is when you push even harder. I think boycott, divestment, sanctions, which is already making amazing grounds today, more than ever. This will expedite it. Unfortunately, I mean, I hope you know where I'm coming from, and I'm not saying, oh, this is great, let's use the opportunity. I'm saying, like, this is show the world, let it come to light, because on the internet, this is where they cannot control. Well, they're trying to, but thus far, they're not controlling the flow of information. And what was it? It was a small victory, but the NBC News reporter who was in Gaza, he did the report on the 4 children killed on the beach, and then NBC pulled him. And there was a big outcry, and they sent him back. Now, U.S. Congress is not as influenced as NBC News, but that gives you a sign of that there is an impact that you can make, and ultimately everyone does what the one individual can. But just keep raising your voice, because we can. And again, I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity. I haven't spoken in over 2 years, and I'm very grateful for the chance to speak, which is often venting and therapeutic for me, and to share my message, and for you to all spend this evening here. It means a great deal. At the very least, the positive energy goes out there, and you want to be able to stand in the way of it. We don't have the ability to do that, but we have our role to play.
Thursday, come out Thursday.
There you go.
And just on the UNAC Facebook group, someone posted with the hashtag for the word Arab, that is in, I guess Hebrew, I don't know, the tweets that have been coming out of Israel about what's going on here. And if you really want to see racism, you got to see that. It's like worse than you would ever see an apartheid, an apartheid regime in South Africa or in the South during the worst days. I mean, it is terrible. And if you look at the textbooks that they use, you know, they do not shy away from saying, well, Arabs aren't as smart as Jews, and all this kind of stuff. They've created a thing where Arabs are not human to people there, so they can kill them. And really what they've done is they've dehumanized themselves. And how we're going to change that around, that whole population of young Israelis that have been taught that, it's going to be a very difficult thing, and all that's really needed. But all we can really do is put pressure on the world, and I think Israel is losing in this propaganda game, and as it keeps on pushing forward, and like never before, it loses more and more, and we have to make sure that happens. Let's do one last question, Kwame, and then
Well, just a brief comment, I'll make it quite brief. But the United States has the worst record in the entire history of the world of hypocrisy, lies, massacres, and oppressions. Every single president of this country has been a criminal involved in crime, from Washington to Barack Obama, who's the worst, because he's such a hypocrite, has fooled so many people waking up to it now. There hasn't been 1 second in the history of this country where they have not been involved in horrible crimes. In California, it was legal all over the country too, but they even had laws on it to start killing the Native Americans, and if you give their head or a scalp in the latter part of the 19th century to a disbursement center, the state of California, they'd pay you for it, and it was backed up by the U.S. government. They do that until shortly before World War I. This country has a horrible record that many people under illusions about. It's a criminal government, the worst in the entire history of the world. And I've been invited, surprisingly, this will be the daytime, many of you can make that, I know, but I was just told about, I'll talk about it a little while ago, but today even more, so I told you to set it up. On September 16th at noontime, there's many senior citizens who are not working come there at Albany Public Library to give a reading on a book I wrote back in 1993, where I summarized 10,000 years of history in 65 pages documented it. Just a survey, 10,000 years.
I wish I'd gotten in touch with you.
65. No, your book would be more important than mine, because I was going to write, it was supposed to be part of a trilogy. That went from 1776 to 1877, and I was going to write another book from 1877 to about 1925 to the present day, but I never got around to finish it. Then I did start another one, though, that basically dealt with how women were the first slaves, the oppression that they suffered, starting about 10,000 years ago. And only, anyways, I never did get around to doing much on that. I only edited about maybe 80 pages of that. So that's one of the things that I want to always talk to Friday. But I do want to read it because there's so many people that I'm so grateful for, and I want to read your book. And it would be great if we could have a bigger meeting for you at some time around here, because if you haven't had much time to speak, much opportunities, you should be speaking more, because you're very informative.
Oh, thank you.
In a great way. So you are a great teacher.
We love book signings.
Oh, thank you so much. Believe me, I'll be like Joe. Well, first of all, you probably hear me from Delaware when the book is done, because it's been 6 years in coming, and you'll hear me screaming with joy. But I want to thank you for your comment. I mean, your point is so valid. Like, we can't really, looking at Israel and calling them racist is really the pot calling the kettle black. We have so much to do here that, unfortunately, I would say for myself that the future is up to the people who live there and have the right of return. But right now we are complicit in the war crimes, so I have a say in what my government does. Unfortunately, ending the occupation, as long as it's taking and as unbearable and difficult as it is, this is the easy part. The next chapter, because of the extremes that have been reached and the oppression that is in place, that's going to be difficult. But as long as everybody's got a breath in them, they got a voice in them. So we have plenty to do here at home. I can't really, exactly as an American, I can't really condemn any other country's leader, because look at what we got. So we keep going and keep raising your voices. This is, you know, this is well, every analogy I can think of is negative, but this is the nucleus, you know, right here. And again, seeing, I may not remember your names, but I remember your faces, and I'm so grateful to have shared this evening with you, and I look forward to returning when the book is done, hopefully done writing by the end of the year, and then God knows how long it'll take to get a publisher, but oh, I'll be back. I'll be knocking on the door.